Welcome to Your College Bound Kid, a podcast for families and parents everywhere. Whether your kids plan to attend college or you have current college students, you want them in and you want them to graduate, and you want a quality education that you can afford. I am Anika Madden, writer and founder of HandleItMom.com, and I am the mom of Jalen, a college junior, Janaea, a high school sophomore, and John, who is the best fourth grader on the planet.
I am Mark Stucker, founder of School Match for You and author of 171 Answers to the Most Asked College Admissions Questions. And I am the father of Karis, who is a college senior, and Joy, who is a college freshman.
And it is Thursday, March 8th, and this is episode number 6, the Salary Edition. In this week's news, we're going to cover an article that discusses why college students are not using their college's career services. And we're on chapter 6 of 171 Answers. And we're going to focus on ways that our kids can learn what the salary projections for the jobs that they are considering will be like in the future. And this week, we're going to bring you a special segment where we're going to cover some bonus content that we decided we wanted to share from our first 5 episodes.
Hello, Anika. What's new in North Carolina?
Wind. heavy wind. So much wind that it has knocked our phone, internet, everything out of the box. So we're down for the count for a couple of days.
Yeah, I saw where DC where they closed schools for the day. So you got that. We didn't. Well, listen, Anika, I want to share something with everyone that's been on my heart lately. And it's just for you students who are seniors and you are about to be accepted and admitted to the schools that you're attending, I really, really, really want to emphasize how important it is that you sign up for any freshman student orientation program, multicultural orientation program. And it's really impressed on me right now because it's spring break and Karis came back from Davidson and she brought 2 of her friends with her. And they knew how to get in my pocketbook, like, Dad, take us to dinner, Dad. Yeah. But you know what? They're just great kids. And here's the thing. They all met each other in the start, before school even started, in a freshman orientation program. And I can tell that they're going to be friends for life. So just want to put that out there for you students who are about to head off to college shortly. Let's turn to college admissions hot topics in the news.
Okay, Mark, our article for this week comes from The Atlantic, and it's entitled, Why Aren't College Students Using Career Services? And this one is one that comes from a young lady who she is the writer, but she also happened to be a student at the time who was requested by her college to sit on a panel that was hiring into their career services office. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with this startling statistic that she gave. And Mark, I want you to, go ahead and dive in because I know you got some really great points to cover here. But basically what it's saying is that over 80% of students say that they enroll in college to get a job, but less than 20% are actually utilizing the career services that their college has to offer. What is that about?
Well, it's first of all, shout out because I thought this article is fantastic. And there's just a lot of reasons. The article talks about why these career centers are underutilized. And one of the reasons why they're underutilized is that people do not even know they exist. And if they do know they exist, they certainly don't know what they offer or how they can help them. So, I try to tell people when you're visiting a school, like visit the career center, stop in and check out the services that the career center offers. And certainly if you're at the school, tap into all the resources. But that's one of the reasons that they're underutilized right there, is that people don't even know they're there or what they do. There are other reasons too. Another reason why they're underutilized is people don't think they need their help. So there's this mindset that graduating from college is this, it's this elixir, this term I use. It's just the heavens open, the Red Sea parts, and 30 people are knocking at your door, waiting outside to give you that job offer. And people don't realize like the planning that goes into getting a job and how proactive you have to be, right? They just think that, well, I have a college degree now. Like, can I just go where I want, do what I want, get paid what I want? I mean, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but that's definitely another reason. And do you remember, Anika, how the article talked about how students, of course, they rely on their family and their friendship network, but it also talked about the difference between upper middle class and affluent families versus under-resourced families. And do you remember that part?
I do. And what I remember about it is that it's basically saying that if I'm a kid and I have doctors and lawyers in my family, it's nothing for me to go to my own personal network and, shadow and, even so much as get connected to my family members' network where, under lower income and I remember she the lady pointed out that not necessarily that all African Americans and all Hispanics are low income, but they do represent a large portion of that student population, and so they tend not to have those stronger networks in their family. So they they're the ones to appreciate those services more, but the ones that appreciate it again are the ones that actually know about it. So there's still that, divide in terms of who's accessing what and who knows how to access it. And I remember it went on so far as to even say that, kids from lower income families don't even know how to really interact with adults in power. So that was something, and I really liked the way she transitioned, Mark, into really giving great suggestions on how career services can become really creative in terms of how they're connecting with the students. And basically what they're saying is that why don't those career services equip those faculty and staff with the basic job, career service information before they refer the kids over to their services. So it's basically, she just showed it as a collaboration, not seeing career services as this one, kind of oasis on the, in the on the campus, but showing it as a really collaborative effort and how you can really.
Yeah, I really like that point that she brought out because, what she was saying was, okay, it's true that career services needs to do a better job of internal marketing and letting people know that they exist and letting people know what they offer. Absolutely. But what the article went on to say is all the research indicates that people reach out to their natural sphere of relationships when it comes to jobs. Friends, even professors, advisors, who they're already naturally interacting with. So instead of career centers saying, woohoo, I'm over here, come over here and, learn about me. And maybe the communication gets through, maybe it doesn't. Why don't you take advantage of that web of relationships that exist, train them with some of the basic skills and use them as an extension of your services? And I thought this is actually the first article I've read where someone said that. So I thought that was a really good idea. And another point that she brought up that I thought was great was that even when people are using the career services, oftentimes they're not using the most beneficial aspects of the services. And so she talked about like the skill tests are great that they offer, and I'm not trying to minimize the value of those. And so is the work they do with resumes, but learning where the jobs are and the availability of jobs and how to get in the jobs, how to get in the internships and how to access the grad schools. Those are some of the best things that career services provide and often some of the most underutilized services. So I just thought that this was a great article because, that is a disconnect, Anika. You brought it up. 80% go to college expecting to get a job, but less than 20% are utilizing the services. Like, it does. You got to make it happen. You can't just wait for the job to fall out of the sky.
That's right. Well, that, and I also, I really like the quote that she provided by the director of the Wellesley College, and that, the success of a career center would be driven by the mindset of the director leading those services and how forward thinking they are. And I thought that was really powerful because it really is in keeping with that leadership and that person that's running those services to make sure that they are engaging in all the ways possible. So now it's time for our step-by-step walkthrough of the college admissions process.
Okay, so we're now at the part of our podcast that I think of as our college admissions course, where we systematically go through each chapter in the book 171 Answers. And we do this so that you will have no gaps at all in your understanding of this process. So we're focusing right now on helping our kids pick the right major and the right career. And today we're going to talk about how you can know what salary each major will lead to. I mean, you're not going to know it precisely, but to get a very, very good sense of what you can expect to pay. And I think that's important because we don't want to be naive. Like, as much as we talk about doing what you love, if doing what you love means you're eating ramen noodles all the time, then you might reconsider that. So why don't you kick off by just giving your sense of what your takeaways, some of your key takeaways were from this chapter, Anika?
Well, once again, Mark, you gave some really excellent tools to go in and just look at salaries in general. But the most striking for me is the collegescorecard.ed.gov. And what that is that where you can literally go into, so for example, I went in and I looked at the colleges in my area right now, currently around Greensboro, North Carolina, and it pulls up all the colleges in the area. And what it does, it shows, and it's way more in depth than this, but the main things that I remember is that it tells you the average cost of the college or the university, and it also tells you the average salary of the graduates that are coming out. And I'll tell you, I was honestly blown away by a couple of them, Mark. And I remember one specifically where the college, was one of the higher end, in terms of tuition, but the graduates weren't making that much. And that was, it was really shocking. I was like blown away. I was like, whoa, that's kind of an eye opener. So that's huge. But like you said, you do what you love, but there is that's that hardcore reality that we have to deal with, is that can I really survive off of this? And to be able to have access to that data on your colleges and the average of the graduates, the salaries of the graduates was powerful.
Yeah, and there's some other tools in the chapter that deal with salaries per majors and per career. And earlier in my day, there was a time, Anika, when all I said to people was just do what you love and everything will take care of itself. And a lot of times that's true, but I've just seen too many people that I have worked with or known over the years. I'm thinking as we talk about lots of people who have done education, teaching, that loved it, but they literally just could not pay their bills depending where they live. Right now, as we talk, there's a strike going on in West Virginia, where West Virginia teachers are making $30,000, and all they go through for that. Now, if you don't have a second income coming in, that's pretty tough to make it off of that. And I've met other people that did environmental work. I've worked with people that did social work, and they really, really liked it, but it just literally could not pay their bills. And so, and that's going to be different for everybody, right? Depending on what lifestyle they're comfortable with. Obviously, the more you love something, the more you'll make a sacrifice. But sometimes it just gets to the point, depending on a lot of factors, your bills, your loan debt, how many kids you have, whether or not you have, a spouse or a partner, someone who's bringing in supplemental money. And we just don't want to be naive about the fact that money still plays a role. And we don't want people to get to be flabbergasted when they get out and they find out I did all that and I'm only making this.
Right.
and that's a personal thing, right? Like you have to make that decision, how much you need in order to, for your lifestyle. And so in this chapter, we give people some really good tools to know where some of the most reliable information on wages and salaries. Some of them are updated like daily, with their, with new information.
Well, I will say, Mark, we're in this day and age where, multiple streams of income is almost necessary. But I suppose, looking at these charts is, how many streams am I going to have have should I choose to continue in something that's not as lucrative as I thought it would have been or expected to be in this regard. So.
And sometimes, I know I said this before, I can't, reiterate it enough. If you're extremely passionate about something, like you may be willing to do that and do 2, 3, 4 things, right? Like you just love it that much because it doesn't feel like work and it's actually fun for you. And that's cool. But that's just a self-discovery process that people need to go through. And I think this chapter really helps sort of be a little reality check on that. Time for a question from our listeners.
Okay, so this week, Mark and I thought it would be a great opportunity to do something really special. And I know Mark is we have this running joke with us is that I am the audio snob
Sound
when it
snob.
comes to recording these
Right.
podcasts.
Sound
Yeah,
snob.
excuse me, sound snob.
You're trying to like make it sound more buttoned up.
I'm like, Mark, we got to do that again.
What
Sorry.
a sound snob is.
A sound snob means that I'm listening in these excellent headphones, and any little crackle I hear, I want to do it over because it's just not right. But but let me tell you what kind of snob. So Mark, my dear people, is a content snob.
Yes,
and a content, Mark, would you like to share what a content snob is?
Perfectionism to the nth degree. And so, yeah. So
you call it perfectionism. I call it passion. Let me tell you that. And so Mark, every time we record these episodes, Mark is, he's really adamant to say, I really need to say this. I really need to add this. Oh man, I wish I would have said this, which I totally, totally love and respect. So what we thought we would do for this week's, question section that we normally have is that we would pick one or two really brief highlights that weren't stated in certain segments of between episode 1 and episode 5. Can you believe we're already on episode 6? It's crazy.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and dive into it, Mark. So
sounds good.
So Mark, I know in episode 1, we had a question from one of our listeners in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and she was asking about the community service and how important that played in terms of the applications, college applications. So what else did you want to add to that, Mark?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I wanted to add on in this segment. And everything that I said before still stands. I'm not going to repeat that, so I encourage you to go back and listen. But two other things I want to add. One is that the school, meaning the college that you're applying to, is a factor, a big factor in how much they do value community service. So this is where you get in and you look at the mission of the school. You can oftentimes pick that up. And if you don't pick it up, you should pick it up from the mission. If you don't pick it up from the mission, you should pick it up if you immerse yourself in all their literature and everything on their website. And I'll share an example from a school that I was talking to about a particular applicant and what the interest level was in this applicant who was applying. And the admission officer told me that the one thing that I found concerning was that the student didn't seem to know that we're all about community service. And they said, if you don't know that we're all about community service, then I question if you're a match for our school. And so this was a school like community service at the core of their motto and their mission. And so that's the one thing that I did want to add to the answer is that your community service will resonate more if it's a school that values the community service.
Excellent.
And the second point I wanted, thank you. And the second point I wanted to make, and we'll talk about this a lot more in future editions, is that this is something you have no control over, but it just is what it is. So people look for people like themselves in admissions. So you don't have control over who reads your file. That's something you really don't. And depending on the school, usually there'll be 2 and oftentimes 3 readers, for schools that do holistic admissions. And if your thing is community service and your admission officer or the couple of admission officers are assigned to read your file, let's say they really did community service, let's say they value that tremendously, then they will value that extracurricular a lot more that you bring to the table. And I really would encourage people that people are really like, I'm all in this. I can't get enough of this. I want more information. I want to encourage you guys to read a book called The Gatekeepers. It's all about college admissions. And it was written some time ago by Jock Steinberg, a award-winning author for the New York Times. And what he does in the book is he got permission from Wesleyan University to follow around an actual admission officer for 8 months and go everywhere where he went. And Wesleyan actually let him sit in the admission office, sit in committee discussions and everything. And then he follows 5 particular people and he tells their story. And one of the things he comes away saying is he could not believe the subjective factors that played a role in who got in and who didn't. And one of the things he talks about was which admission counselor read your file, because each person is different in terms of what they're looking for. And that's why most admission offices, what they like to do is make sure they have a full range of diversity in the office so they have all perspectives represented. But you have no control over that, but that's a big factor. I just wanted to throw that in. Does that make sense, Anika, or is that
it does?
Is that surprising?
Sense. No, perfect sense. All right. So, ready for episode 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So now one of the articles that we covered, Mark, was called Here's How Washington Could Shape Higher Education in 2018. And I know that there was a correction that you wanted to make and a comment that you made on that.
Yeah, this was a little bit more of a correction. So it went back and I was listening to the episode and I talked about how the 1965 Higher Education Act is up for reauthorization. And I said that's the basis for all of our financial aid programs, Perkins Loan, FSCOG, Pell Grant. And yes and no. In reality, the Perkins Loan, which, by the way, became obsolete a few months ago, but it was the longest standing need-based program around, was actually started in 1957. So that was before the 65 Higher Education Act. And FSCOG really was birthed out of that. And a Pell Grant came around in 72. Like the beginnings and the emotional sentiment and the drive and the political will within the country, all for the Pell Grant, all came out of that 65 Higher Education Authorization Act, but it actually wasn't technically part of it. So just a little minor technical adjustment on that one.
We so appreciate. Okay, and now we're on episode number 3. You had some additions, Mark. So the question from episode 3 was about was whether applying to Ivy League schools, if there was a benefit to that, and there was something that you wanted to add. There were a couple of things you wanted to add on to that.
Yeah, so that was a really nice, robust discussion we had, and a couple of things I wanted to add here. One is there is an Ivy League mindset in certain places of the country. We call it sort of the Bosch-Wash corridor, Boston to Washington, D.C. I would say even more than that, really, from Philly to Boston. You see that, having lived in these places. And think about it, all the Ivy League schools are all there, right? So you've got your southernmost Ivies, your Penns and your Princetons, and then you go up to New England. So that's where all the Ivies are. So Ivies tend to be more valued for people that live within that region than outside that region. That's one thing. And I would say in particular, New York City. New York City is a place that tends to value Ivies. And so I want to say there's a regional component to how Ivies are valued. And then the other thing that I want to say is I remember we were having a conversation in that question, Anika, and we talked about how brand name matters for law schools, for a lot of, especially corporate law, and a lot of companies, they do like to hire from what they regard as top 20 law firms. But the one thing I wanted to mention is the one place where I really see having Ivy credentials can help a lot is if people are interested in Wall Street careers. And I just wanted to mention that. And Wall Street careers could be a lot of things, right? We're talking about analysts. We're talking about partners in private equity firms, mutual fund managers, chief compliance officers, chief technology officers, prop traders, researchers of hedge funds, traders at hedge funds. Like there's lots of Wall Street jobs. And these are usually 7-figure jobs, by the way. These jobs pay $2 to $5 million, most of them. They're big money. And I was looking at an enrollment survey based on the New York City investment banking professionals, and it basically looked at where people in Wall Street went to college. And I'll read off the top 11 for you. So number 1 was Columbia, which of course is an Ivy League school. Number 2 is NYU, which is not an Ivy League school. Number 3 is the Wharton School, which is the business school within the University of Pennsylvania. So that's Ivy. Number 4 was Harvard, Ivy. Number 5 was Cornell, which is Ivy. Number 6 is MIT, which is not in the Ivy League. Remember, we talked about the Ivy League being a football conference. Listen to this. So this is important. Number 7 is Rutgers State School for New Jersey. Number 8 is Baruch College, which is part of the CUNY system in New York. Number 8, University of Chicago. I'm sorry, number 9, University of Chicago. Number 10, University of Michigan. Number 11, Stanford. And then some of the other schools that get hired a lot. Graduates get hired a lot for Ivy League jobs, include University of Texas. There are a few other places that Coalition app has good information, but I would rely on the website. So that's, first of all, the most reliable way to know. And the second thing that I wanted to say on this one is, so here's what most schools do. After regular admission, and you can go back and listen to episode 4, we went into what regular is versus rolling versus early action, early decision. But after regular admissions is over, okay, that deadline has been passed, and then notification decisions have been sent out. Most schools then go to rolling after regular is over. So once regular is over, if they're not full, they basically convert to rolling after regular if they have openings, which, most schools will have some openings. So it's sort of not called officially, oh, we're rolling now, but they really are. There's no difference between what they do in an admission process after regular admission deadlines have been met, notifications have been sent out, and rolling, because what they're doing is there's no official deadline like rolling doesn't have. And as applications roll on in, then decisions roll on out. So if let's say a school has a regular admission deadline of February 1st, okay? And then let's say they send their decisions out, let's say March 15th, okay? And then do you remember, Anika, what we said was National Candidate Reply Day? What would be the date that?
I believe that's May 1st.
Correct. Yeah. So let's say May 1st gets around, and let's say this is a school that needs to bring 5,000 students in order to meet their enrollment objectives. And May 1st comes around, and the school has 4,800 students enrolled. So they're still short 200. So now they will become rolling after May 1st up until the time when those 200 students enroll.
Wow.
Does that make sense, Anika, or is that not?
It does. Love it. Okay, and finally, we are on episode 5. One point, we had so much fun discussing the article.
I'm remembering this right now.
Like this gentleman, John Roseman, said college visitations are becoming a waste of time. And you did such an excellent job bringing out all the positive and important, valid points that he was making. But I know there's a few other that you wanted to share too.
Yeah, and I don't want to give Mr. Roseman too much credit. It's not so much that he explicitly said this point, but he implicitly said it. So one of the things that we didn't talk about is the fact that you don't have to visit all of your schools on your list before decisions come out. You really don't. And I constantly encounter this. Let me tell you how often I encounter this, Anika. I met with a new family at, what's this time right now? We're recording this around 8:20 right now. So I met with a new family today at 6 p.m. Okay. And they were about to do this. We're about to go out on all these visits. Mark, can you help us go on all these visits? And they don't even have their list down yet. But they felt like that this is something that people feel this pressure. They have to go visit all these schools before they really even have their list down. And I really want people to know that, sure, it's true. There are schools that, especially if you live, let's say, within a 3 to 4 hour radius, if you don't visit and they're looking to demonstrate interest, it can work against you. But in most instances, you don't have to visit a school before you apply from an admission standpoint. You really can visit your top schools, your favorite schools, ones that are cost effective for you, ones, that are valuing whether or not you do an on-campus visit. And then you can take a look at where you get in with an affordable package, and then only visit if, in fact, you get in with an affordable package between the time decisions go out and that May 1st date. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when I'm working with students and families, they feel like they're failing a test if they don't get to every single school on their list. And that can really put people under a lot of pressure, both financial pressure and time pressure. And I just really wanted to make it clear that it's absolutely okay to do that, because every school has what's known as visit back days, accepted visit back days, admitted student days. And Nick, I'm going to give you a shot at that. Do you remember that? Did Jalen do that? Do you know what an admitted student day is?
Yeah, basically, they did accept him, but they gave him, was it before or after acceptance that they allowed them time to actually come after? It is after, where they actually get to come back and experience the campus. Like they get to come in and make sure that this is the place they want to be. They give them that opportunity to dive into the culture of the campus.
Exactly. So there's nothing.
Is that right?
Exactly. So there's special programs. A lot of times they roll the red carpet out because you've worked hard in admissions. This is what you've done all year to get these kids. And now they're on campus. So you want to expose them to everything. And so there's nothing wrong with going back to admitted student days. There's also nothing wrong with just, most schools are still doing regular visits. Like tours, information sessions. There's nothing wrong with just doing a traditional visit like that. And sometimes I work with students and they don't even, I had this happen week before last. They prefer not to go through the standard admission process. I usually don't recommend that, but they want to meet with a student that's already at the school and have them take you around. Nothing's wrong with organizing one like that as well, although I'll always recommend that people do that in addition to go through the admission office. So I just, Mr. Roseman, he never said this. He just said, you don't need to do it. They're not helpful. And I just wanted to draw attention. This is a way you can approach your visits. Visit the ones that are your top priorities. And then for some people that might be 2, some that might be 6, some that might be 8, some that might be 3 or 4. Ones that fit in your time within your budget, and then only visit the other ones if in fact you get in and you get in with an affordable package. And I think if people really realize that, it will help them a lot, because every time I tell this to people, it's like I can just see the stress coming out of their body and out of their pocketbook too. Because I haven't told you this, but I mean, we dropped like $5,000 on visits when Karis was, in between 10th and 11th. Yeah, because she was looking at California, all over the place, and so. I mean, it's a lot. Hey, I could have that $5,000 back right now, but no, I mean, it was great. Like, I love that. That was some real fun times traveling around, taking those trips, and it worked out in her case. But I don't want people to feel like you have to do it up front.
That's right.
Anything else you want to add?
Mark, I'm loving it. No, but I'm loving this concept, Mark. I think we should do this every 5 episodes or so.
Yeah, because you know what? You'll help me as a content snob. Then I'll be like liberated from my guilt that I didn't make that one point I wanted to make. So I'm down for that. You are the best. You are the best content snob ever, Mark. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. I do want to say something to everybody. If you're enjoying this podcast, tell a friend, spread the word. For sure. Yeah, because this information can help people, and there's a lot of people that are just thirsty for knowledge. So tell a friend. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. And if you find this podcast helpful, it would help us tremendously if you would subscribe, rate us, and write reviews of your college-bound kid on iTunes or your favorite podcast listening app. And most importantly, we want you to spread the word. The amazing music that you hear is by Victor Allen Weeks. Artwork is by Elaine Aguilar. Marketing designs by Kimberly Blass. And Your College-Bound Kid is produced by Esteban Sartho. And if you have a question or a few questions that you would like for us to answer, please email us at collegeboundquestion@gmail.com. That's collegeboundquestion@gmail.com. Every week, we'll select one question and answer it in each episode. To get a copy of the book, 171 Answers to the Most Asked College Admissions Questions, please visit 171answers.com. That's the number 171answers.com. We look forward to you tuning in again next week.